Okay, hello everyone. So Moritz and I are going to talk to you about our physical red team war stories, basically. It's not going to be a very deep technical talk. We're going to go over some little technical details here and there, but it's not going to be very elaborate. So the agenda for today is basically we're going to introduce ourselves a little bit, introduce Enviso very briefly, and then give you a quick background about the difference between pen testing and red teaming. And then afterwards, we're going to jump straight into the stories, and at the end, we're going to do a quick takeaway and Q&A session. So yeah, all the story details, like names, locations, and everything are anonymized. We have a lot of pictures that are AI generated, just to keep the anonymity. So me, I've been at Enviso for almost 5 years now, and I do only red teaming, so basically like 90 to 95% red teaming.
Right, my name is Moritz. Let me also welcome you to our talk. I've been with Enviso for 4 years now, started out as a pen tester, then became a red teamer. Nowadays, while I focus on doing R&D in the red team space, every now and then I get to work on other projects, right? And on more exotic projects and on more exotic scenarios. And one of those are the physical projects that we got going on. And you will hear a whole lot of that in this talk.
So who is Enviso? Enviso has been around since 2013, and we have spread to basically from Belgium to Germany to Greece and Austria, and we have I think it says 270 experts, but at the moment we have over 300 experts in Europe. And basically we do the whole range of cybersecurity stuff. We do red teaming, we do pen testing, blue teaming. We have strategy and architecture, compliance, everything about cybersecurity, basically. So a quick background, so for the people that don't know yet, the difference with pen testing and red teaming is basically pen testing. You have, for example, a web application that a customer gives you or another application, and they say, test this please, and just report as many vulnerabilities as you can. So there's no stealth. They know that you're doing the exercise, and they expect that you find, hopefully, a lot of vulnerabilities. With red teaming, the difference is that you get an objective. Like, for example, a bank says, hey, we have this internal application. If you reach this, it's game over for us. And you have to be stealthy. And sometimes this includes phishing to get your foothold, and also physical breaching. So going to the offices and actually going in there and plant some devices or steal some documents. And that is what we're going to talk about today. Another quick methodology background. So for these physical breaches, we have certain different methodologies that we use. We're not going to talk about all of them in this talk, but basically you have different phases. Like for preparation and recon, you do what's called OSINT, open source intelligence. You go online and try to find as much about the company that you can find without doing active scanning, so it's just passive. Embedded recon is basically going to the office premises and without being too obvious, just take a look, take pictures of people with badges, for example, see where they have exits and entrances, and then try to come up with a game plan for later. So phase 2, you have covert entry and overt entry. For covert entry, for example, you have the access card cloning, which we're also going to touch on today. Covert means that you still under the radar, you're not talking to people. You try to get into the premises without seeing anyone, basically, or talking to anyone. The overt entry, for example, social engineering, that's where you make yourself known and you try to trick people into basically letting you into the premises. And then phase 3, once you're in there, you want to reach your objectives, and sometimes you want to maintain access, because it has happened before that we had to go in there multiple times. And that you do via hardware additions, or you steal some documents, or you try to steal badges that you can use for the badge cloning. So who is who in a red team? Of course, you have the superstars, the red team itself. We are the ones that actually execute the attack scenario. We try to be stealthy. We have to find our way in either via cyber or physical intrusion, and we try to reach one or more objectives without getting caught. Then you have the blue team, they are the enemy. They are not fully aware of the attack, well actually not aware at all. And once they see an incident, if we do release a detection somehow, then they need to treat it as if it's a real, well they don't know, so they will think, is this real or is it a red team? They have to treat it as if it's real and they have to investigate. And they make our lives difficult, or they at least try to. And then you have the white team, they are fully aware of the operation. Those are basically the people that know that we are doing the red team, which is usually like 2 or 3 people within the company. They are involved in all the planning and they are the connection between the red and blue team. So for example, if we do something and it gets detected, they will let us know and they will say, okay, the blue team is now investigating. And then it's time for our first story.
All right, so that will be mine. Could give me the presenter, please? Thank you very much. Yeah, come on, thank you. All right, so first story is going to be about a industrial plant. It looked something like that. So it's in an industrial setting. It looked not that fancy, not that epic at all, but it was quite sizable, gotta admit. And our objectives were to gain physical access and infiltrate the facility, then gain access to servers that were hosted there locally. And once we had access to the servers, try and attach our rogue device, our Raspberry Pi, basically, to one of their network switches there. Sounded like a mouthful to do, but let's try and do that. So we started with reconnaissance with OSINT. So we tried to find out as much as we could about the facility without directly interfacing with it. So Google, YouTube, social media. And for industrial settings, specifically, Google Maps is a goldmine, because you can get a very good idea of the size of the facility, of where it's located, of access points, everything. It's pretty cool. So using that, we found that this is a very remote location. Makes sense, you don't usually have industrial facilities in the middle of your city, right? But you could also see it's a very extensive, wide and open area. You could see some perimeter defenses, like fences, parking lots, access ways, and a couple of buildings that might be interesting. Then using Street View, for example, we could confirm, yeah, indeed there are fences, quite tall fences actually, like 2 to 3 meters high, so it could be tricky to jump over. There were lots of cameras, we could already see that, and there was only one single gate for entrance. So that could be a challenge. Also, we found it's close with the public, so there's no events taking place there, there's no guided tours, no bring your child to work day, whatever, you wouldn't find that there. Again, makes sense, right? But it was a bit of a bummer. So then we proceeded to going on site, taking a walk there, acting as someone just enjoying the landscape. Admittedly, it was a quite nice landscape there. And what we found there, with a focus on the physical access controls and the perimeter defense there, was that they indeed only had a single gate and very few doors embedded into the fence. Both of those were heavily guarded by lots and lots of cameras. It was absurdly many cameras. And it was not only regular cameras, the white team told us when we discussed it with them. They told us, no, there are wide-angle cameras, there are thermal cameras, there are night vision cameras, they got everything there. So, again, a bit tricky. Then we found some weird sensors that were installed on the fences. First, we couldn't make sense of that, but after some research, we found that those were vibration sensors. So climbing the fence, not a good idea. They told us they are highly sensitive, so much so that even birds landing on the fences would regularly trigger them, which is good and bad for us. Bad because it's highly sensitive and they would for sure detect us. Good because they were triggering and causing false alarms constantly. So maybe that's an idea. Then we found that even though the fence was pretty tall, there was one spot where we could potentially jump over the fence, because there was an electrical cabinet on the outside of the facility, and you could theoretically climb that and get in. It was not a very bright lookout for that, so we presented them 2 options. The first one would be jump the fence, the second one would be some non-technical, not very exciting, but maybe more promising social engineering. So we said, okay, for jumping the fence, we found that spot, it's super easy to get in for us, super hard to get out, because that spot was on the far side of the facility, and there would be virtually nowhere to get out from then, because try jumping 3 meters, it's quite the challenge. And it would be super suspicious at night, because we found during our observation that there was nobody on site at night. The facility was well lit, incredibly well lit. It was winter time, so even the snow on the ground would reflect all the light, so you would be sticking out like a sore thumb. that would make it super hard to hide in case you were detected by anybody. And you would be thinking to yourself, just go there at night. Nobody's there. Nobody will see you. Maybe via CCTV, but hey. No, I kid you not. There were people walking their dogs even as late as 1 a.m. at night. Crazy. I don't know why, but people did that. So, okay, hiding not an option. Maybe that's not a very good idea. In summary, so we, together with the Y team, decided, hey, let's not do that. It's a terrible idea. Let's maybe go with social engineering, but we don't have a good story or pretext to use for that. And then they said, okay, you only had 1 day for observation, which is very, very short amount of time. If you had had 1 more day, you would have found that every other day there's an external cleaning staff coming to the facility to clean. So maybe you can impersonate them. We told them, you know, sounds like a super easy pretext. Let's do that. So we can develop a super simple story and persona for that. It was during COVID. We would just say, let's grab some supplies, some cleaning supplies, tell that the original team fell ill, got COVID, we are the replacements. Sound like a super simple execution. Question is, will it be good enough? And then also another challenge, when you got external cleaning staff, usually they got keys or key cards so they can enter the areas they need to enter, right, for their work. But maybe we can get around that, let's see. And the Y team said, hey, let's go for it. So we decided to do that. Cool. Then later that day, my colleague and I had dinner and we discussed a bunch of stuff and he asked me like, okay, you grabbed all the stuff for the rogue device from the office, right? Yeah, I did. I did the test run of it, ran good? Did it like do all the things? And I was like, dude, I was in such a hurry, I just grabbed all the stuff, I didn't test it yet. Damn, okay, I will do once I get to the hotel room. And I did. So the rogue device, super simple, it's just a modified Raspberry Pi. We got our peripheries for that, right, all the accessories. And it's supposed to work something like that. When you're on site, you would just connect it to the local network. It would then have a LTE modem to connect to the internet, connect to our C2 server, and then we could remotely, via the C2 server, connect to the Raspberry and to the network. Super cool, pretty simple. So I tested that, didn't work. That was a bummer. Turned out, oh no, I grabbed the wrong freaking LTE stick, because we only had one in our office that we knew didn't work. We tested this, and accidentally I grabbed that one. So it wasn't me, I was like, oh no, oh crap, what am I going to do now? So of course there's going to be a Linux USB network device troubleshoot speedrun session until 2 a.m. Not very fun. But luckily, you know, there were a whole bunch of people who had the same exact problem or use case there as I had. And I found that, again, you know that pattern, whenever there's some obscure, poorly supported or documented USB periphery, chances are that someone, before you try to make it work on Linux, horribly failed, but eventually succeeded. And this was the case, right? So I scrambled together some scripts. That was before ChatGPT, by the way. You can see there's a whole bunch of sleep statements in there. It was janky as all hell, but it worked reliably. It just took like 15 minutes to boot up and be ready. But it was okay. And that's how I felt after I was done with that. So next day, we were ready. We first got our cleaning supplies for like $50. We got a mop, a bucket, some cleaning agents, whatever, sponges. And then around lunchtime, we went to the facility, to the gate, rang the intercom. They asked us, who are you guys? What do you want to do here? And we told them, hey, we are the cleaning staff. The original team fell ill. We are the replacements. And without any further questions, they told us, hey, you know, proceed inwards, go to the registration desk, you're good to go. Then we were there. We didn't consider at all to go to the registration desk because why would we? And we already knew that this was the building that we wanted to or needed to go to, so we did. Just went there, and we were a bit afraid that it might look something like that. Very busy, very many people. But no, it looked more like that because, of course, it was around lunchtime, and nobody was there, right? Everybody was grabbing their lunch in the cantina, luckily for us. And we were there. So that building looked something like that, with a huge glass front. Turns out it was locked. We couldn't get in. It was a bummer, but there was some random worker passing by. We just told them, hey, you know, we are the replacement guys. We got no keys. Could you please let us in? And after rambling a bit about COVID, they eventually let us in. That was good. Now we weren't there, but all the doors were locked. There was only a stairway going up, so we went up. And then we sat there, and all the signs on those further doors said something like, you know, hazard to life, there's electricity, gases, whatever, it will kill you. Not cool. We don't know anything about that. We are not going to proceed here. Let's do the sensible thing, call the Y team, and ask them what to do. It was around lunchtime. They were not answering. Yeah, so then we sat there. We were super exposed because there was that huge glass front. And slowly people were returning back to work. And we just didn't want to be sitting ducks, so we actually started cleaning. You know, you have to really fill in your role there. That worked quite well. Eventually, the white team picked up. They gave us directions throughout the rooms there, and we finally found our destination. So that was the server room, but dang it, all the server cabinets, they were locked. Yeah, well, there were maintenance panels on the sides you could just pop open. Nice security there. So we got our hardware editions and our access to those sensitive areas, and we were good to go. So after doing that and taking some pictures as evidence, we left. And 1 hour later, the inevitable happened, and of course, the original cleaning staff turned up. We're like, hey, we're here to do our job. And the guys were like, dude, you were already here, what's the issue? So turns out, you know, it worked pretty well. So social engineering is super successful. They had heavy perimeter security that didn't work at all for them in that case, because their staff was just severely lacking security awareness. Interestingly enough, they figured out that something was wrong. They raised a local incident, and there was some bizarre measure that they took. They actually reviewed the CCTV footage, and I kid you not, they printed wanted posters of ours and handed them out to people. That was interesting. And with that, I hand it back over to Firat.
So, I'm gonna tell my story, which is not in an industrial setting, but more in an office setting. My objectives were also gaining physical access, of course, and then planting a road device and take pictures of sensitive documents or anything like a laptop that they left laying around. Sorry. For the recon phase, I went there and I saw there was like a medium to large office. I saw there was a revolving door, and I saw people getting in and out the whole time, and the door kept spinning, so I thought, okay, that looks good. And I saw elevators inside the building, because it was big glass panes, and I saw there was in front of a receptionist desk, so I would be inside of them. I would have to be a bit crafty there. But yeah, I thought tailgating looks possible, and I saw people in the streets wearing company merch, so I thought, you know, during noon I'm just gonna go follow some of them, and I'll just tailgate behind them. I thought I wouldn't even need a fake badge. It's going to be an easy tailgating job, so I just didn't prepare much and I went straight for it. But when I tried to tailgate, it was actually a smart door, so it saw that I didn't badge and it turned me back twice, while someone else was also coming from the opposite side, and we looked eyes and it was quite awkward because we turned back very slowly and we crossed eyes and it was like, no, that doesn't work. I tried that again. And then it happened again, and I was like, okay, this is not going to be as easy as I thought. So after that, I saw that one of the colleagues there was smoking outside. So I talked to him, and I said, you know, I'm a consultant, I'm early, and I really need to go to the bathroom. Is it possible if you could let me in or something? And he told me, the receptionist lady is actually coming right there. You can go to her. And I she started talking to me. She said, like, who are you? Who are you here for? Do you have a number or something? And I basically said, like, yeah, I'm just this guy, consultant from this company, and I needed to be here. Meanwhile, she proceeded to let me in. So I was sitting there in front of the receptionist lady, and then she said, you can wait here for your contact person. So I thought, okay, nice, I got into the building, but now I'm sitting here and she's probably expecting someone to pick me up. So what is the next step? It was around lunchtime, so I did have my bag with food and drinks with me. So I looked around and I saw that all of the doors and elevators required badge access, so I wouldn't be able to just sneak around and get out without her supervision. But then suddenly, after like a few minutes, she says, do you want to eat your food in the canteen maybe? I was like, no thanks, I'll just sit here and I'll wait for my contact person. But then my ID came up, I was like, wait, what am I doing? She's giving me access to a locked room where you normally need to badge. So I was like, okay, you know what? I actually would like to go eat in the canteen. So she brought me there, and of course, normally you need to badge to enter it. So I thought, okay, this is one security perimeter I've breached already. And then I looked around, I saw people with the company merch eating their food, because it was a building with multiple companies. And I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna follow these guys into the elevator. I was looking at them, saw that they were finishing up, and I was ready to follow them. But when I went outside, sadly those people left the building instead of going to the elevators, and there I was back at square one again, but at least I was out of sight of the receptionist lady. I was hiding behind a little wall, a bit similar to this picture. And then I saw other people coming out, and they did go into the elevator, so I was like, okay, I'll follow them. And I followed them into their office floor where they held the door for me, very friendly, so I could get into the office and sit down somewhere. So I was there, I just picked a table, and some guys came to talk to me, and they were like, hi, who are you? Are you new? I said, yeah, I'm just a consultant, I need to do my job here, and we had a chat for like 2 minutes, and then they left. So I thought, okay, jackpot, I got in, that was easier than I thought in the end. But then suddenly they came back with the receptionist lady, and she looked quite concerned, like on the picture, and they started rapid firing questions at me with 3. While I was sitting there, they were surrounding me and asking questions, so I had to be fast. And she was like, "Who are you? I thought you were going to wait. I thought you were going to wait downstairs. What are you doing here? How did you get in here?" The other guy was like, "Who are you? This is a sensitive department. Normally, only authorized personnel is allowed. Like they could spot me immediately that I did not belong there." And the other guy is like, "Do you have a number? Who is your contact person? I will call them right now." And meanwhile, I was trying to answer all of them at the same time, and everything was getting a bit confused and thrown through each other. In the end, the guy asking the number just forgot about it. He just, I don't know, he didn't do it. And then he was like, all right, fine, I will bring you downstairs again and we'll get you a visitor's badge for another floor that is not sensitive. So that was great news to hear. I went with him, we had some chat, we had laughs and everything. We went there, I picked up the new badge. I had to give my ID card, which is not ideal, but at least you still got the badge. But I was not in yet, well, I didn't win yet because I made a stupid mistake afterwards. I went back in and I saw the receptionist lady sitting there. I was like, I'll go chat with her and ask which floors am I able to access or allowed to access. I could have gone into the elevator without asking her, but then suddenly she got suspicious and it was like, hold on, wait here. And she brought me to the security room where I had to wait for someone to pick me up suddenly. And so I called the white team and I told them what's happening and they were like, okay, I'll come get you and we'll consider this a leg up. Because technically I had already won. I just should have not talked to that lady afterwards. So back to Moritz then.
All right, thanks a bunch. So this one is about a mountain base. Looked something like that. So that was super interesting, a bit more of an exotic project, because this one was an underground facility, and the only thing poking out really was the entrance at the side of a mountain. And there the client asked us and gave us the objectives to, again, infiltrate it, gain physical access, and plant a rogue device. But not only anywhere, but in the controller network, in the OT network. Okay, so we proceeded to do some reconnaissance, right? Turns out for a underground mountain base, satellite images are incredibly not helpful, so I skipped that. Anyways, Google Maps gave some interesting pictures for on-site visits and tours that they did there, because as you can see, there are various people of various sizes, so I guess some of those were children, random clothing, but all of those got hard hats, so they got public tours, that's interesting. And there were of course, some pictures of the individual rooms there in the underground facility. I even found a 3D map kind of visualization thing of the facility, super interesting. Admittedly, it was a bit hard to map the pictures that I found to that map, but it was of some help, was somewhat interesting. And again, of course, it's a remote location, it's some random mountain, right? Extensive underground area, close to the public, but guided tours, super interesting. A bit of a bummer about that. You needed to register for those 2 weeks up front with a minimum group size of 10 people. We were 2 testers, and we were supposed to go there like 3 days later. So, well, anyways, we proceeded to do some embedded reconnaissance on site again, because this base and that entrance there was located near a public road, or just right besides a public road. And people usually just take breaks there because it's a semi-open public space. So we did that at night, because then nobody was around really. At night, everybody left. And we found that, yeah, there are locks that look like they were high security locks, so lockpicking not a good idea, especially because there's a whole lot of CCTV cameras again, so they would surely pick up that we were picking locks there. Not a good idea. There was a keypad in card reader. That was interesting because that had exposed screws. So you could theoretically fiddle with that, but realistically you would try to identify the exact model, order it to your company, to your lab, and then try to research it, try to break it open, and find out how it works. Obviously, we couldn't do that in that amount of time. And we found that during the day, lots of traffic, but at night, no traffic at all. So how would we then try and approach that? Well, we thought to ourselves, okay, there's an access card reader, but we won't realistically find any access cards laying around, and trying to get people to give us their access cards might be a bit tricky, because most of the people going in there are like workers, and trying to convince them could be a bit tricky. Trying to disable alarm or CCTV installations, rather destructive. We wouldn't want to do that. Also, the client didn't want us to. Lockpicking, not an option due to the monitoring there, and fiddling with the access controls there, also not a good option. So that left us with the overt entry, and we were certain, and the client was also, that they didn't want us to destroy anything. So that left us with source engineering and persistence. So persistence meaning that once we got in, we would try to hide somewhere, maybe in bathrooms, and then try to do our malicious actions then there at night when nobody was around anymore. That was interesting, but we told them, yeah, we found out about those guided tours, but we can't register for that anymore, and we are too few people to do that. And they said us, well, okay, you're right on that, but as luck would have it, the day you are scheduled to go there, there's also a guided tour taking place for new joiners. So maybe try joining that. That was a very good idea, so we did. We went there in the morning at 8:30. It was cold as hell because it was snowing. And then we waited for the bus of people, of the new joiners there to arrive, and they arrived. We joined the group, and were immediately greeted by a presumably HR lady. And she told us, hey guys, I haven't seen you all morning. Who are you guys? And we developed already a persona and pretext for that. And we told her, hey, we are from the German branch, and maybe they didn't contact you yet, but we happen to be here, just recently joined. And we were told that this tour took place today, and we should just join, given the opportunity. What a coincidence, cool. And she was fine with that. So we joined that tour. It was super interesting. After like 10 minutes or so, she came back to us and asked us, guys, what's your name? I had a call with HR HQ, and they aren't aware of anybody joining. So we gave our fake names, and she was okay with that. We continued to tour, and another 10 minutes later, she was like, okay, guys, who's your manager? Nobody's aware of you, and nobody knows your names. And we told her, yeah, our German branch, it's really known for having a super rocky onboarding. It's known to be very hard on that. They screw up stuff all the time. So we are not very surprised that you didn't hear of us, and that maybe our manager is not in your system. It was a bit weird, but then she told us, well, it's a private event here. I can't have you be here. I need to ask you to leave. Which was a bummer, but it was somewhat okay. We were then escorted out by a worker there, and he told us, I don't get it. It's the same tour we give to the general public out there. What's the issue in having you here? We were briefly considering talking into letting us rejoin, but we were super certain that this HR lady would spot us again, so we wouldn't do that. And this is a half win, or more of a fail, admittedly, because we didn't get to do what we wanted to do. But the situation did not escalate. We were not busted. We were not really caught. For such cases, we have a get out of jail letter, which is a written piece of paper which says, who are we, what are we doing, here are contact persons from our company, from your company. So before you call the police and apprehend us, please call those people so we can de-escalate the situation. We didn't need to draw that card, which is good. So at the first attempt, turns out this lady was the sole reason why this didn't work. She was super process-oriented, and we presented a deviation in her processes, and that sparked suspicion. She was super persistent also and assertive, because I tell you, this lady had an expression in her face. She let you know that she's not someone to be kidding with. So we didn't. We didn't dare. Yeah. So interestingly enough, they raised an internal incident at HQ, but we never heard anything of that, and neither did the white team really, so that was that. But the white team said, okay, we don't want to give up on this exercise at this point. We will provide you with a leg up and try to simulate what would happen if this was successful. So we went there again. It was still snowing at night, at like 1 a.m. And we were escorted by a white team member who was authorized to access the facility and had all the access keys and whatever. And he briefly disabled the alarms and let us in. And then also followed us around because it's a quite hazardous environment, right? You can't just let us randomly jump around there. So we had a look at the facility, but didn't get as far in the public tour as we would have liked to, because we didn't know yet where to go. So we just explored the space. It was quite big. And then eventually we found that control room. super interesting. We found that there was an HMI, which is an industrial like human-machine interface. It's a display that lets you control the processes that take place there, right? So a very, very abstract, very high-level description. It's basically like a fancy tablet, you could say, right? They were locked though, so not of much use. Then we found some drawers, and as you could expect, we of course had a bit of a look at the files there, and of course there were clear text credentials to that HMI, so we could unlock it. That was pretty cool. Then we noticed there was also a printer, and we noticed that the network cables and ports were color-coded. And we noticed that that printer had the same color coding with its network cable and port as the HMI had. So since the HMI needs to be connected to the OT network, that might mean that then also the printer is connected to the same network. So why not try and plant our rogue device here? But we figured, okay, maybe they might have some network access controls here, so let's do it in a somewhat clever way. So we assumed that this is the setup. You had your printer that then authenticates towards the switch, and the switch, once successfully authenticated, would open that port for the printer to then reach the network. Cool. What did we do? Super simple. Again, Raspberry Pi to the rescue with 2 Ethernet interfaces. We bridged the connection. And then using Silent Bridge, for example, we had a transparent bridge. We would then assume the IP and the MAC address of the printer and would then be looking the same to the switch and to the remaining network infrastructure as the printer would. Super cool, super simple. Now, interestingly enough, I didn't really think about that beforehand, but I think the Y team already disclosed that this would work, and I was surprised that it did. We again had an LTE modem, underground, in a mountain. I didn't expect this to work. It worked brilliantly. So we had, again, connection via our cloud infrastructure to our C2 server, right? So that worked. And then the cool thing is, once we had this installation in place, we could then also remotely pretty much inject packages into the network. Super nice, because we were just acting as some kind of router. We were then implementing a source NAT for the printer, right, and static ARP entries, so we could just communicate into the network. Super cool. We installed that. That worked quite nicely. Again, this was like 1 a.m., and suddenly the phone rang. That was a bit weird. And my colleague and I were locking eyes. Then we were locking eyes with the Y team guy, and he was like, guys, if I were you, I'd run, because that's security calling. They detected you unplugging the printer, possibly, and they are most likely to come investigate. So we ran back, really, packed our stuff, ran outside, and the Y team member said, okay, now from some distance, let's observe and try and find out whether somebody comes to investigate at all. And we had a look around, and nobody was coming. We waited for like 30 minutes, nobody was coming. We were super surprised, nobody was expecting that. There was a bit of an aftermath internally because of that, right? So we found out that LegUp was very successful. They had heavy security, but only at the main entrance. That's what the Y team said. We couldn't really deduce this ourselves because they disabled this for us. But then they raised a local incident because they figured out, okay, that port was disconnected, the alarm was disabled, somebody was there, but for some reason they didn't really record anything with their CCTV or couldn't make anything out on their recordings. So then they rounded up all the people who were authorized to access this location and asked them and interviewed them, were you there? And of course, our Y team member played along as like posing as some kind of malicious insider, and they were like, no, I didn't. And then this was quite interesting, but they did not make any connection to the first incident, which was a bit weird. Then they went all panic mode and started off a plant-wide investigation and search. So they performed a whole sweep throughout the whole facility to find out whether anything was being sabotaged or manipulated or anything. They did not find the implant. That was weird, also unexpected. And with that, you're up.
Cool. So for me, focal cyber threat, again, office setting and the same objectives as before. So I have to get in and plant some rogue devices and take pictures of anything that I can find, any interesting stuff. For the recon, we went there basically, and I saw that it's a very big office building, and we saw that tailgating would pretty much not be possible because the entry was right next to the receptionist desk, and they controlled the doors to open for visitors. We didn't know that batch cloning is possible. That was something that we already saw when the Y team told us what kind of batches they used. So we brought a copy device with us. So we crafted an attack plan for this one, and we were going to use phishing, voice phishing, basically. So what that means is you're going to call people and you're going to attempt to let us in, basically. And for our attack plan, basically you need 3 participants. You need one intruder who's going to go there, a second intruder to also accompany them for later, and then you need a remote participant who is going to perform the calling. So first of all, what do you need to perform phishing? Of course, you need phone numbers to call. How do you get phone numbers from companies? Basically, you can search the dark web. Maybe there have been some breaches before, or you can pay someone that can find out some numbers from inside. You can do your, like once you have your entry via virtual breach, for example, you can check the internal knowledge bases for phone numbers, etc. And also out of office mails. Like if you send a lot of mails to people, some of them are out of office and they have these automatic replies, and in their signature you will see their phone numbers normally. So what makes this attack interesting, what we did was we applied caller ID spoofing. What that means is basically you can call people and then display any number that you want. So I could, for example, call Moritz using a number from anyone here in or like one of our colleagues, and if he has that colleague saved in his phone, it will actually also display that colleague's name on his phone. So I could call Moritz and it will display Ali, for example, but Ali is not really calling him, it's me. I've pranked some friends with this, it was quite funny. So a little bit technical know-how. The client that we use to perform this is called Zoiper, for example. There's many other things that you can use. And then using an asterisk PBX server, basically you set up a local telephone network inside your business. And then one thing, like from back in the days, Trunk, basically back in the days you had these telephone cables that go to your town, for example, and they go to each house. And if you wanted to make a call to another town, for example, you would have something which is called a trunk, where all the cables connect and then they get routed to the next town, and there they spread again to the different houses. Online, virtually, you have what's called a SIP trunk, and you can register those, but it's something official. It's not something that you can just register like that, like enter username, email, and done. You have to actually provide some official documents for this. Like this is regulated stuff. So once you have that, you can connect your local telephone network to the public network through that SIP trunk. And then you can have your caller ID, so basically the phone number that goes through to your trunk towards the public network. And then there's something which is called CLIP screening, like caller line identification process, that's what it stands for. Some phone providers do not verify the caller ID. So if you're doing caller ID spoofing and you want to look for a provider that does not verify this, otherwise your attack is not going to work. Yeah, and then it was time to go ahead, start the action. So the first intruder goes there, goes to the receptionist desk and says, "Hey, sorry, my phone battery is dead. I need to call one of my colleagues immediately. Could I use your phone, please?" And the reason why we do this is because we want the receptionist desk number so we can actually call them. Like, for example, the numbers I talked about earlier, we needed one of the employee numbers, and then using that employee number, we will call the receptionist. The receptionist is going to say, hopefully, "Of course, could you tell me their number? Then I will call them for you." And then you give them the number of the remote participant, the one that is sitting in the office and is going to do the calling, and then she's going to call him or her. And then once that happens, you have the receptionist number, and then you can start the attack later. So with that number in hand, our remote participant is going to use this caller ID spoofing. He's going to basically pretend to be that one colleague whose number that we have, and then he's going to call them. And one option is also you can use AI-generated voice. A bit more difficult to pull off. We didn't use this in our engagement, but nowadays it's getting more and more possible to do this. And then that remote participant is going to call the receptionist lady using the spoof number and she's gonna say, okay, that is a number from one of our colleagues, right? So he's gonna say, hello, you're speaking with this coworker. I am, for example, expecting someone from this company to be here in 10 minutes. I'm gonna be busy in meetings all day. Could you please let that person in when they get there? And she'll be like, yes, that's fine, I've noted it down, I'll send them straight to you. And then, for example, the second intruder is gonna come in as the awaited guest. It's gonna say, hey, I'm this person from that company that was just mentioned. And then she's gonna say like, oh yeah, I've heard that you were coming by, so I'll just let you in. And then from there you've passed your first perimeter. An interesting optional path is that the intruder that got in now could basically let the other intruder in by using badge cloning. Like we knew that their badges were using a weak encryption protocol, for example. I'm going to go over it on high level here. For example, the MyFair Classic card, high frequency card, has like, their cards had a default encryption key set, so they did not change it. And also it uses Crypto1 Stream Cipher, which is a weak and predictable algorithm. It has like the pseudo-random number generator is quite predictable, and if you can crack that, you can reverse the algorithm. The thing is, it's not like in the movies where you just have your device where you pass someone by and it does like a little beep and you have the card. No. For us, it took like 30 seconds to clone the card, so you have to basically have someone that left their card, that went to the toilet or something and left their badge on their desk or something like that. The device we use to do that is called iCopyX. So we put the card on there, wait 30 seconds or a little bit longer, and then we copy it onto MyFair cloning cards. So it has to be a card that actually accepts the same technical specifications. And that was it for the stories. And we have some takeaways here for those that are interested how to prevent stuff like this. For example, for Moritz' story, that one lady that was very persistent and assertive. I know we don't like to do this with people. We try to be helpful, but if it's a highly sensitive environment, you have to really make sure that you're letting the right people in. You have to ensure that visitors are always accompanied by staff. If someone is visiting and they say they have a certain contact person, always verify this contact person, call the contact person, do not let them call you, and then make sure that it's really them before letting them in. And then when you are calling someone, always make sure that you know who you are calling, otherwise you will call strangers and they will have your number to further their attack path. So that was our talk. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and then we can now have a little Q&A session if we still have time. Yes?
Excuse me, sir.
Hey, so I have two questions. My first one about the badges. In your estimate, what's the percentage of badges that can be cloned in Germany?
Good question, to be honest. I can't answer that one. It's
just a ballpark number.
It's not my field.
Okay.
I wouldn't know, to be honest. Maybe someone here that could tell you. I couldn't answer that one, sorry.
And my other question about those wanted posters, did anything come from that? Did the guy who let you in, did he recognize you or did he keep his mouth shut? Did he tell them where you went and did they find the device you installed?
The white team member?
Mm-hmm.
No, they kept their mouth shut because for both of those engagements, we didn't only plant the devices there for them to be there.
I mean sorry, not the white team member, the worker who mumbled about COVID.
No. The thing is, during those assessments, whenever we notice that someone didn't act as they maybe should have, we do our best to make sure that they can't be identified, right? Because we don't want them to be blamed. There should just be a general announcement towards the workforce. Guys, please be aware that we need to be sensitive to such attacks. So.
Okay, thank you.
We sadly didn't receive any. Well, it was only hearsay from the white team, so.
Yeah, for those that didn't hear, he asked if we kept a copy of the wanted paper. We didn't.
Hi. You mentioned the out-of-jail card, and my question is, have you ever been caught, and do you protect yourself as an individual? As you mentioned, you operate not only in Germany, in other countries, so are you protected by insurance or other means against getting caught? And the question arises because many companies are getting bigger and bigger, and there are hierarchy, and there are teams, like the white team in the middle field, for example, and like other stuff might get in trouble or so, and would like to see you in jail, for example.
So the question is if we've been caught before?
Yeah.
I get it? Yes, it was actually one of my stories, but because of time constraints, we left it out. Basically, the woman, I had a fake badge, and the woman at the receptionist desk was already, well, of course I couldn't badge, like it wouldn't work, and that was part of the story, that I would go up to her and say, hey, my badge is not working, and it was like a last minute thing, you know, and she just took my badge and immediately started scratching it as if she was trained to do it. She saw that it was fake and she just pulled it off, because we didn't print it. Normally we print badges because it was last minute thing, my manager just pasted something on there. And she saw that it was fake, and still somehow she let me in because of I just talked her into it. I just because I just bullshitted my way around it, you know. And then she let me in anyway, but she was already suspicious, and she told me like, I'm gonna check with security later. So I know I was on borrowed time. And then I got like the message on my phone, and I got the message on my phone saying security is looking for you. And I was thinking that maybe someone's going to come in here and tackle me. But a guy came up to me, I was very professional, I was already smiling because he probably knew it was a exercise, you know. And then they just guided me out, and we saw the receptionist lady on the way out, and I talked to her, and she was like, oh damn, I knew something was up, you know. But
yeah. Do you fully rely on your out-of-jail card from your company, or do you have any insurance individually for your safety?
I think we got insurance, right? As far as I know, like
I hope so.
not our personal insurance, but the company is of course insured. So in case anything happens, they are covered. So
okay, all right.
We have our get out of jail card, but we also sometimes bring a fake one without signature. So we bring two of them.
Another question: did you ever break stuff with your implants or rogue devices?
Do you mean break our devices?
No, like if I heard about ICS and OT devices, they are quite sensitive, and if you plant a device like your rogue devices,
no.
Did you ever break stuff?
We are super sensitive when we are operating in any ICS context, because that is not only very costly, but also super dangerous to human life. So in those contexts, never really. And then when we are in business spaces, there's not really a huge risk of anything happening. So if we happen to break, I don't know, a network port, it wouldn't be a big issue.
There's one more question in the back, and then here one more.
Thank you. Those were some really engaging stories, so thank you for that. So when it comes to initial access on these engagements, you presented a few options on the slide, but almost always you fell back to social engineering. If social engineering wasn't an option, what would be the next most popular, or what would you often prefer to do?
That's a good question. I think we very rarely are in a situation where we are only or exclusively hindered by technical measures. And even if we were, we would still try to attack the human vector. So, for example, as was the case with your badge, right? So even if we found, okay, they require you to badge, and we can't for the life of us get a hold of any badge or try and fiddle around with the PAX system there, we would still try to talk our way into it. Other than that,
I've got one, or a few times. I don't remember all of them, but one time we didn't use any social engineering. Usually, the bigger the office, the easier it is to get in without social engineering, you know. And this was a huge office. It's a different story. And I was there with a colleague, and by coincidence, that day the security gates were left open because of some maintenance or something. And once we got in, there was another perimeter we had to cross, which was closed, and we couldn't get in. So we went for a noon break. We went to Burger King. Afterwards, we went back, and while we were walking, we were talking. Suddenly, I noticed that someone is coming with a wheelbarrow, and I was like, "Yo, look!" I started running. It was like, "What is happening?" The guy with the wheelbarrow came through, and he badged, and he opened the door. I was like, "Please, after you." And then I snuck in, and I saw my colleague after me running towards me as well, and we both made it in that way. So it was just pure coincidence that we managed to just tailgate our way in. So if you can't do social engineering, you just have to hope that, yeah, something is open or something.
Are they sanitized from the firmware, and you also use Chinese USB sticks? So how do you know your Raspberry Pi is not infiltrating on piggybacking you into the target?
That's a very good question, and honestly, I can answer you because I am not part of the team who engineered those at our side. Thing is, if I recall correctly, we are currently working our way towards finding other solutions to Raspberry Pis because they come with a lot of drawbacks, right? But specifically for that question, I'm afraid I can't really answer the question for you.
I was wondering if you have a sanitation protocol or something.
Well, as far as I know, we
like sanitation of the firmware, or?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Well,
I mean, at least we do use newly formatted and newly acquired SD cards, so that's a minimum.
Yeah.
So that's that.
Okay, thank you.
Oh yes, we do. Specifically, for example, for the for network sniffing, we use that a whole lot. I believe there are also network implants that you can remotely control from Hack5. Personally, during my assessments, I exclusively use Raspberry Pis. Then during pen test specifically, I used more of the packet sniffing capabilities of Hack5 devices. I think there was that packet scroll.
I've used a local keylogger before. It's like basically like a little stick, and then once you're there, it shows like a hidden Wi-Fi hotspot that I can connect to, and then if I connect there, I just browse to a website. I can see the keys that he's inserting, and we've also used the remote keylogger. So basically, you plug it in, and then you can just go back to your office, and over the net, you would catch their keystrokes.
What's your range of customers? So do you only test private companies or also military facilities or agencies?
I'm not sure if we can
I don't know if we
disclose
can
that. I don't
answer
think
that
so.
one, honestly.
Yeah. No. It's a broad range of
I'm
customers.
going to stay quiet on this one. We know your name.
Thank you. Oh, one more question. Excuse me.
Do you guys ever use fake identities? Like actual fake identification?
I printed a fake badge once. And a well-printed one with a laser printer.
So you don't impersonate like valid government identification?
No, that's...
No.
Right.
The thing
okay.
is,
These guys are trying to get us in jail. No, we don't do this.
it's pretty illegal. Actually, we had one instance where there was a project an assessment where we managed to, what was that? Their parking system, right? You could reserve a parking spot. That was pretty cool. There wasn't a web app for that, publicly exposed. We found a vulnerability in that, and we managed to bypass authentication for that and just book a parking spot for ourselves. Cool thing. Then we thought to ourselves, okay, you need to add your license plate there, and we don't want to use our private or company ones. We could just print a fake one, right? And slap that onto our car, and are good to go. Thing is, it would be looking super suspicious if you did that right in front of the parking lot. People would see that, right? And then we were concerned, okay, we would need to then do that somewhere, traverse public space, public roads. Are we allowed to do that? So we actually called the police and asked them, hey, can we do that? And they were, hell no. So we didn't. So no, we don't do that. That's a good question. I don't know. Very good question. I was not part of that project, I can't say. I hope they had the idea.
I think there was one more question somewhere here. Yeah, over there.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Regarding the scenario where you did the call number spoofing, you mentioned that it's an official process and I guess you have to register with your company. So I wondered whether it's possible to trace back this fake call number back to your company and thereby disclose basically your real identity.
Probably, I don't know, you're shaking no, but I haven't looked into that yet. If they do something like this, it will probably be a quite big investigation. I don't think it's as easy as like tracking a domain name, for example, and calling the, like for example, if we register a domain name on AWS, that would be way easier to track, you know, but with phone numbers, I don't think it's that easy. It will probably be a bigger investigation. But okay. I don't know if they can.
Okay, thanks.
Another question about phone number spoofing. So you recommended if I get a call from my colleague and he wants something sensitive, I should rather call him back under his number, right?
Yeah. So that's the weak part of this technique. If you call someone and they don't pick up or they want to verify, they're gonna call that person later, and then that person is gonna pick up and say, no, I didn't call you.
But from my understanding with Signal System 7 spoofing, the attacker could also redirect my call and I would come out at your colleague anyway. Like call redirector, I think they would have to have some access to either your internal phone network or hack some kind of cell phone tower. I think that's a pretty big attack. And Veritasium did a report about this. You can just go into a country with lax regulation, register a signal provider, and with a whole roaming system, they can pull off stuff like this.
Okay, that's really cool.
Indeed, yeah. Thing is, those providers work differently and provide different options and different configurations for their networks, depending on where they are located, that's one thing, and what they would like to do, right? So there are different European providers, for example, that provide no screening for caller ID. That's cool. We obviously try to find those and use those. Others don't. Then you can try having a look in other countries, right? If that makes sense for your project and if you're actually legally allowed to use those services, you can do that, but...
I'm not talking from a red teaming perspective here, from a blue teaming perspective, that it would not protect me against serious attackers or state-sponsored attackers. And like I said, I think it's like 20,000 euros or so to get a license, so easily affordable for cybercrime.
Yeah, then depending on the sensitivity of your organization and your context, it would make sense to fall back to another channel, right? Because the telephone system is quite ancient.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories. These were really, really interesting. But one thing I want to know is, when you are hired for your role, what kind of training do they put you through? Do you learn how to pick locks? Do you learn how to jump fences? I'm just asking, I don't know.
Some acrobatics training.
Really?
No. For physical training right now, it's kind of not really, how do I say this? We don't really have a dedicated track right now for physical. They just look at who wants to do this and who can do this. And then...
There's a limited range of available trainings for that, but it is super limited and it's mostly focused on the technical aspects. So for example, for lockpicking and other means of bypassing physical access controls, there are some trainings, but looking into having more, especially a take on the social engineering side of things, that's a bit more tricky. I hear that there's a broader offer in the US, for example, but I'm not aware of any such thing really in Europe, but I'm not up to speed, so.
Yeah, there was one that I actually looked into last week that I want to take, but I myself, I haven't done any physical trainings yet, but my manager is now pushing me to do it, because even though I do these assessments as well, it would be nice to have some official knowledge on all these badges and all these logs in case you need them, because we have done it, we have used stuff like that before to get into companies, you know, some little bit of lock picking, some badge cloning, some trickery with door locks and stuff like that.